Have you ever noticed how some people seem to stay calm no matter what life throws at them? Maybe it's an unexpected health scare, a difficult conversation with a family member, or even something as simple as getting stuck in traffic when you're already running late. They don't raise their voice. They don't panic. They just breathe, think clearly, and handle the situation with grace. Ever wondered how they do it? Well, here's the secret. It's not about being born that way. It's about practicing a different way of thinking, one that's been around for thousands of years. And no, you don't have to become a thinker or sit on a mountaintop to practice it. In fact, the beauty of this approach is that it's simple, practical, and it works especially well as we get older and wiser. Today, we're going to talk about 10 powerful lessons that can help you stay calm, centered, and emotionally steady, no matter what comes your way. These lessons aren't abstract ideas. They're tools, real, everyday tools, that you can start using right now. And let me tell you, once you start living this way, you'll feel the difference. You'll worry less, sleep better, and handle life's curveballs with a lot more peace in your heart. So let's begin with something that's easy to say, but tough to master. Knowing what you can and can't control. Picture this. Walter, a 72-year-old retired engineer, is at the airport waiting to board a flight to see his grandkids. Suddenly, the announcement comes on. Flight delayed by 3 hours. Around him, people groan, argue, some even curse at the poor gate agent. But Walter, he simply sighs, pulls out a book, and settles in with a quiet smile. Why? Because he knows he can't control the delay, but he can control how he reacts to it. That's the first key to staying calm. Embrace what you can control. We can't control the weather, the stock market, what others say or do. But we can control our thoughts, our choices, and our attitude. That may sound simple, but it's powerful. Imagine all the stress we'd save ourselves if we stopped trying to fix things that are out of our hands. So the next time your neighbor plays their music a little too loud or your doctor's office keeps you waiting, take a breath. Ask yourself, can I control this? If the answer is no, let it go. You'll feel lighter and more in control, ironically, by letting go. Now let's talk about another key to staying calm: acceptance. That might sound like giving up, but it's actually one of the strongest things you can do. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening. It means you stop resisting it. And in doing that, you stop making yourself miserable over things that are simply part of life. Dorothy, a retired librarian from Ohio, lost her husband of 42 years. The pain was sharp, and at first, it felt unbearable. But over time, she found peace not by pushing the grief away, but by accepting that it was part of loving deeply. She still misses him, but she doesn't fight the sadness. She sits with it. She talks to him while watering the plants. She smiles at old photos. And she finds comfort in knowing she gave and received love. That kind of acceptance isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Life throws all kinds of things at us: loss, illness, disappointment. And the more we try to resist or deny those things, the more we suffer. But when we stop wrestling with reality, we create space for healing, for peace, and for hope to grow again. Like a tree bending in the wind instead of breaking. Speaking of bending, let me ask you something. When was the last time you were fully present? I don't mean physically there while your mind is spinning with worries or to-do lists. I mean really there, aware of your breath, the feeling of the chair beneath you, the sound of birds outside your window. That, my friend, is mindfulness. Frank, a 68-year-old veteran, starts each morning the same way. He brews a cup of coffee and sits on his back porch, just watching the sunrise. No phone, no news, just him and the morning air. That small habit changed his life. Why? Because it grounds him. It reminds him that this moment, not yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries, is all that truly exists. Mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind. It's about noticing where you are, what you feel, and what's happening right now, without judgment. And the best part? You don't need a meditation app or a yoga mat. You can practice mindfulness while doing the dishes, walking the dog, or brushing your teeth. Just slow down, notice, breathe. You'll be amazed at how calm you feel when you stop chasing thoughts and simply be where you are. Now, as we walk this path of calm and clarity together, we can't ignore one of the deepest truths of life. Nothing lasts forever. The seasons change. Our bodies age. People come and go. And while that can feel sad or even scary, it can also be freeing. Betty, a retired teacher, learned this the hard way when her best friend passed away last year. It shook her to the core. But after the initial wave of grief, she began to see the beauty in life's impermanence. She started keeping a small journal where she writes down one thing she's grateful for each day. A robin at the bird bath, a call from her grandson, the taste of ripe strawberries. She told me, knowing it doesn't last makes it even more precious. And she's right. When we truly understand the transitory nature of life, we stop taking things for granted. We appreciate the now. We say, I love you more. We forgive quicker. We savor the little things because we know they won't be here forever, and neither will we. But that's not a reason to be afraid. It's a reason to live more fully, more gently, more gratefully. And that brings us to something truly powerful, the practice of gratitude. Not the holiday kind, where we give thanks once a year before digging into the turkey. I mean daily gratitude. Quiet, simple, steady. Hal, a retired music teacher living in a senior community, has limited mobility. He uses a walker and spends most of his time indoors. But he told me, every morning I wake up and thank my legs for getting me out of bed. I thank my hands for helping me hold my coffee. I thank my eyes for letting me see the light coming through the blinds. That, friends, is a powerful mindset in action. When you focus on what's working, what you do have, you start to shift your whole outlook. Gratitude softens your heart. It quiets your complaints. It brings peace even on the hard days. Try this. Before you go to bed tonight, think of 3 things you're thankful for. Big or small. Write them down if you want. Do that every night for a week and just see what happens. There's a calm that grows from within when you stop chasing what's missing and start honoring what's already here. You know, the more we live, the more we realize life isn't about controlling every detail. It's about learning how to move with the rhythm, not against it. And part of moving with life means never stopping. Not physically necessarily, but mentally and emotionally. Always being open to learning and growth. Eleanor is a great example of that. She's 74, and just last year, she signed up for her first watercolor class at the local community center. She told me she hadn't held a paintbrush since 3rd grade, but she figured, why not? Every Tuesday morning, she sits among fellow seniors painting mountains, birds, and memories from old photo albums. She says it's not about being good at it. It's about waking up with something new to look forward to, something that challenges her and keeps her spirit alive. And she's absolutely right. Growth doesn't have an expiration date. Whether it's painting, learning a new recipe, starting a small garden, or finally figuring out how to use that smartphone, it all counts. Growth is a lifelong journey. And as long as we're breathing, we're still becoming, still discovering. When we commit to learning and growing, we invite new energy into our lives. We start to feel more capable, more curious, more connected. It doesn't have to be big or flashy. Even small efforts, reading a chapter, walking a new route, calling someone you've lost touch with, can awaken something powerful inside. Now let's talk about something we all face but don't always talk about. Tough times, setbacks, heartache, disappointment. Maybe it's a health diagnosis, or maybe it's a family issue you never saw coming. Maybe it's the quiet ache of loneliness. Whatever form it takes, adversity visits us all eventually. Helen knows that better than most. She had a stroke in her mid-60s that left her partially paralyzed. Doctors weren't sure if she'd walk again, but Helen was determined. Slowly, day by day, she worked with a physical therapist, regained her strength, and now she's back to tending her beloved rose bushes. Not as fast as before, but with even more appreciation. Resilience, that's what carried Helen through. We become stronger not despite adversity, but because of it. Challenges are like the fire that forges steel. And you, my friend, are stronger than you think. Life will test you. But those tests don't define you. How you respond does. So the next time you're faced with something hard, and I mean really hard, remember this. You've been through things before, and you made it. You adapted. You adjusted. You got up again. Resilience isn't about pretending things don't hurt. It's about standing back up even if it's slower than before. It's about refusing to give up on yourself. Speaking of how we handle things, that brings us to another powerful truth. You always have a choice. Not always about what happens, but always about how you respond. George, a 70-year-old retired accountant, knows this well. A few years ago, he lost a big chunk of his retirement savings when the market took a dive. He was angry, frustrated, and scared. But after a few weeks of stewing, he sat down, looked at what he could do, and made a plan. He took on a small part-time job helping other seniors with their taxes, started cooking more at home, and cut back on things he didn't really need. The turning point? He stopped blaming the world and started choosing his response. That's the kind of strength we can all learn from. When we focus on how we react, whether it's with anger, patience, kindness, or clarity, we take back our power. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can choose your attitude, your words, your next step. Every moment gives you that choice. Maybe someone cuts you off in traffic. You can honk and curse, or take a breath and let it go. Maybe your adult child doesn't call as often as you'd like. You can stew in resentment or send them a loving message without expectation. Your peace is yours to protect. Your reactions are your responsibility. Now let's be honest. We all have desires. Things we wish we had more of. Money, comfort, recognition. Even in our later years, those feelings don't disappear. But sometimes those desires can quietly stir up discontent, making us feel like what we have isn't enough. That's where an important lesson comes in. Learn to recognize and limit excessive desires. Martha used to love shopping. When she was younger, she bought new clothes every season, tried every kitchen gadget, and always had her eye on the next big thing. But as she got older, she started to notice something. The more she chased after stuff, the more restless she felt. So she made a shift. She cleared out her closet, donated things she didn't use, and focused on what she really enjoyed. Tending to her small herb garden, writing letters to friends, and making homemade soup from scratch. She told me, "I finally feel like I have enough because I stopped wanting so much." That's the heart of this lesson. When we cut back on craving things we don't need, we make room for things that really matter. We don't need to fill our days with more stuff. We need to fill them with more meaning. And that often comes from simplicity, not excess. So take a moment and ask yourself, what am I chasing that's not actually bringing me peace? Is there something I can let go of, physically, mentally, or emotionally, that's weighing me down more than lifting me up? The truth is, real freedom doesn't come from having everything. It comes from needing less. From knowing that you already have what you need to be okay, even joyful, even grateful. And that idea leads us to perhaps the most timeless lesson of them all. One that weaves through everything we've talked about so far. It's about how you live, how you treat others, how you show up in the world. And that's living a life of virtue. Ed, a retired police officer, is someone you'd want on your side. Not just because he's strong or dependable, but because he always tries to do the right thing. Even now, in his 70s, he volunteers at a local youth center, mentors kids who've lost their way, and treats everyone with the same quiet respect, no matter who they are. He doesn't do it for praise or attention. He does it because it feels right, because it is right. A good life isn't about fame, wealth, or comfort. It's about living with wisdom, courage, fairness, and balance. Those values aren't old-fashioned, they're timeless. They guide us when the path isn't clear. They anchor us when everything else feels shaky. When you act with integrity, even when it's inconvenient, you sleep better at night. When you choose kindness, even when someone's rude, you carry less bitterness in your heart. When you live by your values, even when no one's watching, you feel a kind of peace that nothing else can replace. And you don't need to be perfect. No one expects that. You just need to keep trying. One thoughtful choice at a time. One graceful response. One honest word. That's how calm is built. That's how peace becomes a way of life. You see, once you start living this way, not chasing every outcome, not reacting to every bump in the road, but instead grounding yourself in what you can control, choosing your responses with care, and nurturing the values that matter most, you begin to notice something truly remarkable. The world may still be noisy, uncertain, and at times unfair, but you feel steady. You feel like your feet are planted firmly, even if the winds blow. It's not that life gets easier, it's that you get clearer, calmer, stronger from the inside out. And the best part? This kind of strength doesn't fade with age. In fact, it often grows stronger as we get older. Why? Because with time, we've seen more, lived more, lost more, and loved more. We've learned what matters and what doesn't. We know that peace doesn't come from things going our way. It comes from learning how to be okay even when they don't. Maybe right now, you're going through something difficult. Maybe you've been feeling overwhelmed or frustrated or even invisible. That's okay. You're not alone. Every single person at every age faces these feelings. But what you do with them, that's where your power lies. That's what this way of thinking gives us, not rules, not judgment, but tools. Tools for staying calm when the phone call comes with bad news. Tools for breathing through a moment of pain instead of breaking down. Tools for sitting in the quiet and actually finding comfort there. And it's not just for monks or deep thinkers. It's for people like Walter at the airport, calmly reading his book. For Dorothy, who found peace in grief, not by avoiding it, but by accepting it. For Frank on his porch, letting the sunrise remind him that he's still here, still breathing, still becoming. It's for Eleanor, who learned that new beginnings don't have an age limit. For Helen, who turned struggle into strength. For George, who refused to let anger shape his future. For Martha, who simplified her life and found more joy. For Ed, who lives by his values because it's the right thing to do. And it's for you, right now, in this moment. You have more control than you think. Not over the world, maybe, but over your corner of it. Over your thoughts. Your breath, your tone of voice, your next decision. That's where your calm begins. That's where your strength lives. And remember, calm doesn't mean passive. It doesn't mean pretending everything is okay when it's not. Calm is courage without shouting. It's wisdom without fear. It's choosing moment by moment to respond with presence, with grace, and with heart. You might be thinking, well, that all sounds good, but how do I start? You start small. You start where you are. Maybe it's a morning walk without your phone. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for each night. Maybe it's taking a deep breath before you speak when you're frustrated. Or calling an old friend just to say hello. Maybe it's sitting quietly, just for 5 minutes, and noticing your thoughts without chasing them. You don't have to master all 10 lessons at once. You don't have to change your whole life overnight. You just begin, one quiet choice at a time. And if you forget, that's okay. Start again tomorrow, or later this afternoon. There's no deadline for peace. It's not a race. It's a return to who you already are, underneath the noise, the worry, and the expectations. That peaceful, steady, resilient part of you, it's there. Always has been. This way of thinking just helps you uncover it, strengthen it, and live from it. So if this message speaks to you, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. Share in the comments below. Which lesson speaks to you the most right now? Is it gratitude? Acceptance? Choosing your response? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, even your struggles. This is a space for wisdom, connection, and encouragement. And your voice matters here. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. We're building a community here, a place where experience is honored, growth never stops, and calm is cultivated day by day. You're not too old to change. You're not too late to learn. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be to begin. So take that breath. Take that step. You've come this far, and there's still more to explore, more calm to discover, more strength to uncover, and more joy to feel. Here's to living your best life at any age. Here's to you,